He's one of the best in the business, senior writer for ESPN and an author of so many books about the Patriots, including, if I'm not mistaken, that is one of the book covers with that is being covered by many of the press credentials over his left shoulder. Seth Wickersham here on the Rich Eisen Show on the day. Bill Belichick is going to be named the head coach officially of the University of North Carolina football program. Good to see you, Seth. How are you, sir?
I'm great, man. How are you?
How to reach out and get your 2 cents. Read your piece today, and I wanted to bring some of that smart, intelligent, and thoughtful, insightful stuff to hear. What'd you think of when you heard Bill actually took the job? It's going to happen, Seth.
Well, thank you. I think that like the bigger thing for me was when it even came into the ether that he was considering a place like North Carolina, and then he obviously went on the record and confirmed it last week or earlier this week and talked about like what the program would look like, and that to me was that was a lightning strike because it showed that he didn't think the prospects of getting a job in the NFL that he wanted and felt like he could flourish at and how he wanted to spend, his remaining time in this profession. He didn't know if it was going to work out. And I immediately kind of wanted to know why and then what the appeal of college was for him. And it's been fascinating. I mean, 2024 has not been the easiest year for Belichick, right? He got fired. He got one interview out of the 7 openings subsequently. And, as Don Van Natta and Jeremy Fowler and I reported, he didn't finish in anybody's top 3 in the Atlanta Falcons. The Dynasty docuseries comes out, which we're going to roundly minimizes his role in that, tries to erase it, and former players come out, in defense of him. And then the season rolls around. So he's got all these media gigs that I think he did very well. But every week, he and his former Patriots assistants, all of whom are out of the gig, are, they would meet on Zoom and they would go through every team, every game, every situation. They had incredibly detailed notes, as only the Patriots did it. And the subtext of it all is what jobs are going to open, what jobs are going to consider Belichick, and what jobs would he want. And I think that midway through the year, he asked the people on that call to look more into college programs, not excluding NFL programs, but also add college into it. And I think that the way he spent the fall going to a ton of college games, seeing his son Steven out in Washington a lot, and trying to survey the landscape and think about how he wants to spend his last, years coaching made college more appealing. So
let me dig into those Zoom calls a little bit more. So every week, Bill would get the band back together. Who was in the band?
The band.
On the who was on the Zoom calls that were staying as current as possible in the NFL or football trends, Seth?
I mean, a lot of the people that you saw, on his podcast, adding in, Josh McDaniels and Joe Judge at times, some of those guys. But, I think that like what they were doing was they were, trying to stay current on the game and also thinking about what situation, again, might be best for them should it arise.
So which gigs do you think they were targeting in the NFL that they thought were now out of the reach for Belichick to the point where, or not out of reach, or just be too dicey to pass up North Carolina's opportunity to roll the dice on, Seth?
Well, I think the general consensus was that the Bears were probably the best situation for a coach to go into. That said, I think there was severe skepticism that they were going to look at Belichick. I think they thought, that team's probably going to go offense to try to salvage, Caleb Williams and give him a good shot at having a good career. Then there was the Giants, and, the Giants on paper looked like a great match. Belichick going home, it would be a great story. But there's 2 things that happen there. Number one, Belichick has a great respect for Brian Daboll and thinks that he should be continuing to coach the Giants. And number 2 is if they happen to turn to him, that roster, I think they thought it was further away than maybe they realized. And this was going to be the 3rd year that he was in coaching. So 22, 23, and then 25, if he had been with the Giants, that the press would have been at him and a daily topic is whether he's lost his fastball. And I think that's pissed him off, frankly, from what I've been told, and he's sick of it. And then you had these other situations, Dallas, who knows if they're going to make the change, and who knows if they kind of value the idea of a coach enough that they would want to bring in someone like Belichick. Jacksonville, Michael Lombardi on his podcast kind of took a shot at Tony Khan, Shad Khan's child, about his son, about running the analytics department. I mean, Belichick and Tony have gotten along well, but again, it's impossible to know if he would have gotten any of these jobs. He easily could have ended up with one interview again, and who knows if he would have gotten it. And he was going to coach next year, no matter what. Like, he never wavered from it. He was going to coach. And as the college landscape came around, I think that a lot of the scars from the past year and, situations where he would have had to compromise on some things and maybe wasn't as okay with that as he thought he might be. I think it gives him a chance to run the program the way that he wants to run it, with the people that he likes spending his time with. And it's a new challenge. And, don't count out a legend with a chip on the shoulder and looking for something to prove. I think he's going to do really well there.
In that regard, let's turn the page. Seth Wickersham here on the Rich Eisen Show, ESPN senior writer. And I think the title of the book that's above your left shoulder is a perfect entree into whether this is a situation that Belichick can thrive in. The title of the book about the Patriots dynasty and the pursuit of greatness, it's better to be feared. And part of the germane aspect of that title is it definitely spoke to the way Belichick would run a program. Do you think that that's the way he's going to run a college program? Seth, what's your thought there?
So yes and no. I think that he is who he is, and he's going to run his program. But he's so smart. I mean, he'll adapt. And I think that, like, to take a quick aside, in 2006, I went to see him speak at Southern Connecticut University, where he was giving a distinguished lecturer type of speech, and it was like me and 400 college kids in this auditorium. And I was, kind of worried, like, what if the next 2 hours is just, 120 minutes of his press conferences? And he was so engaged and so funny and so wise. And he really he didn't use those kind of trite NFL metaphors and try to use his experience as a football coach to help them, deal with life beyond college and in the quote unquote real world. I mean, he was speaking to them, and he almost seemed to be enjoying himself, reliving those years when he was their age, and, the future was in front of him. And he was so proud of the fact that he turned down a job in finance and instead went to work for the Baltimore Colts, doing whatever they asked for $24 a week. I think he likes speaking to young minds in that realm. And I think that, like, he knows he's going to have, obviously a ton of connections in the NFL, and the players that can play in the NFL will get great recommendations, but the vast majority of those kids won't. And I think that, like, he's looking forward to just having a chance to shape them and use his program to help prepare them for life. I think that, like, that's an aspect of it that I think that people will probably not realize just how much he appreciates and how motivated he is and eager to do.
Yeah, I mean, he just loves football, loves teaching it, loves telling people you should be here. I mean, that's why his team was always so situationally brilliant, more than most in the National Football League, if not above all. And so now he can have that part and parcel. But that's why a lot of people have left head coaching positions in college to take offensive coordinator positions in college, or leave college entirely as a head coach to be coordinators in the NFL, is because it's not just about the coaching. It's about everything else in the college world, for which there aren't any uniform rules on NIL and portal and things of that nature. So how do you think Belichick's going to set up his system in North Carolina, Seth? Is it going to be like that Godfather 2 line? He's going to have a lot of buffers. It's going to be a lot of buffers between the Don and everyone else. What do you think, Seth?
Well, I think someone like Pete Thamel could answer the ins and outs of that better than me. But I think that, like, he is going to he got what he wanted. This negotiation has taken a little bit. It's taken it's taken a bit of time here, and he got what he wanted. And I think that like one thing with college sports, especially in college football, especially, is that like there's a big cult of personality, and a lot of the coaches who haven't quite reached that cultural place where, their name and aura is a draw enough, are the ones who are trying to get out, because it's a very demanding and kind of miserable, if not well compensated place to be. And just to go back to what you said earlier, I mean, watching Belichick in his media roles this year, where he peeled back the curtain a little bit on his staggering knowledge of football, it became a little embarrassing almost to watch, if that's the right word, when he would be asked to explain these situational debacles in games that, this is stuff that he knew how to do in his sleep. I mean, think back to the Malcolm Butler interception with the clock ticking down, team on the 1 yard line in the Super Bowl. They haven't won a Super Bowl for a decade. He not only not calls timeout, he's looking across the field, sees confusion, finally sees their personnel package, signals in his own personnel package as an answer. The first time all year they've run that exact personnel package with 3 corners and a goal line front. And Malcolm Butler executes exactly what they had practiced, and they win the Super Bowl. And I mean, he's sitting here on TV having to explain Eberflus in that debacle against the Lions. I mean, it became embarrassing. Like, why isn't this guy in the league? And I think that, like, I'm not sure that he wouldn't have been in the NFL this year. You never know how these things go. But I do think that, like, as he surveyed the landscape and he's thinking about the rest of his career, this challenge just seemed more eager. And the more he looked into it, the more eager he got.
So then what is your best guess, based on your reporting along with Jeremy Fowler, and obviously you and Don Van Natta have been all over this thing? What happened to the politics of the NFL that Belichick is saying, you know what, I'm going to just go back to school. I'll be the Thornton Mellon of college football, rather than just sit around and try and chase down Don Shula, because I might not get that opportunity. Why did things turn into this for the NFL and Belichick, do you think?
I mean, from my reporting, I think he feels like there's a lot of like lack of accountability, and that just doesn't exist, within his program, within the way that he was raised. And he believes to the fiber of his being in, huge levels of accountability. And obviously there's inconsistencies within that, but that's broadly, a major ethos of his life. And I think that, like, last year he gets let go by the Crafts after, changing their lives and legacy. He goes and meets with Arthur Blank twice, and it looks like he's the favorite for that job. And things changed in a hurry. And the decision makers in that group not only didn't want him as the head coach, as Don and Jeremy and I later reported, he didn't even finish in the top 3 of anyone's choices. And I think that even though Belichick was willing to work with new people and to adapt his system and not have, the total control that he had enjoyed for most of his career, I think that, like, as he reflected on it more, I don't know if, like, that's necessarily what he wanted. I think that, like, he wanted to work with people and spend his days with the people that he really enjoys spending days with, and they're philosophically aligned. I don't think he wanted to sit in meetings and argue with the GM in front of the owner about why his strategy for drafting a certain player, might have made more sense than the previous guy or the current guy or whatever that might be. Why owners don't just want this guy, all of them can come up with an excuse that seems rational. He's too big, he's intimidating, his years without Brady weren't great, he's too old, whatever it might be. There's a lot of, like, plausible explanations out there. But, like, why none of these guys said to his existing GM, look, I'll hire, you're going to keep your job. I need you to work as closely as you can with Belichick. We're going to let him do things as he wants until he gets the record and he retires off into the Hall of Fame. And I want you to learn every single thing you possibly can. Like, the NFL player agent, Mike McCartney, had a quarterback in Denver who was like a rookie, and Peyton Manning was in the quarterback room, and Mike McCartney told this player, whatever you do, write down every single thing that Peyton Manning does all day long. Like, you will never get a better education. And like, why no owner said that to some of these guys is really beyond, I guess my expertise, because the explanation seemed really rational, but at the same time, you're talking about a guy who's an 8-time Super Bowl champion.
I'm going to give you a spinning curve in the zone in the few minutes I have left with you, Seth Wickersham. I know the answer to it. I'm just going to give it to you. I'm going to give you a cookie here. I'm going to give you a cookie here. Because what you just said, when you said, how come an owner didn't tell an existing general manager, guess what? Do your best to work with Bill Belichick and learn, open the books. Just you work with him and you learn from him and you glean from him. And the other way that you could hire Bill Belichick in the NFL is if your franchise is so down and out, you've got to hand the entire culture over to him. Choose your GM, Bill. Choose the groceries, Bill. I'm handing the entire culture over to you because it just hasn't worked out here, and we've got a high draft choice. If that situation could have already had a quarterback, like, say, the Chargers did with Harbaugh. Jim, you bring in your system, you bring in your GM, you got Justin Herbert, let's go win. The best spot for Bill, where the owner is just out of options, it just hasn't worked, to say you handle it, would be the Jets. There's your cookie, Seth.
That's not happening. There we go. Yeah.
Right?
One of the more enjoyable aspects of this year and watching Bill on television is, he'll never fully go there like he would in private, but, seeing a little glimpse of his edginess. And, he had a good time with Woody Johnson after they let Saleh go. Man, he every platform that he was on, and he was on a lot of platforms, he had fun with that one.
Yeah, he said ready, fire, aim was his was Woody Johnson's way of going about his business. But I'm serious, like there's never any chance, right? In a million years, because of the way it all went down years ago. I mean, right? Is that it? Is that the history here, Seth?
He had issues about Woody Johnson before Woody Johnson was even the owner of the Jets, and Belichick was technically the head coach of the Jets.
Right.
The team didn't have an owner at the time, as you well know. And one of the reasons why he wanted out of that situation was because the owner was either going to be Johnson or Jim Dolan, and he was unimpressed with both of them. And that has definitely not waned. And I don't think that the way that Woody Johnson has run the team would give anybody, any optimism that Belichick had it wrong.
In the couple minutes I have left with you, American Kings, a biography of the quarterback, is your next book. It's coming out in September, available for pre-order right now. What's this one? Obviously, it's about quarterback, but what's the log line here, Seth? Man,
I just wanted to know. It's such a unique American job and has such unique, responsibilities. It's both in the huddle and beyond. And I wanted to know what it's like at every level, from high school to college to rookie to franchise quarterback to Hall of Famer and retired Hall of Famer, what it's like to live with this particular mentality and skill set and way of living and lifestyle in ways that it's incompatible with everyday life. I wanted to know how this thing became cool. And it turns out the answer goes back to 1885 and comes through close to where you are in Los Angeles in the coming decades. And, This job just holds a unique cultural place, and it's a lifestyle as much as a job. And I wanted to take as big and ambitious look as I possibly can at it. So it's featuring a ton of guys, current guys, Hall of Famers, retired Hall of Famers. It features, players who aren't even alive right now, and and people like Arch Manning and Caleb Williams who want to be the next ones. And so I'm really proud of it. Hell of a lot of work, and I had a good time working on it. And yeah, it's available in September.
Pre-order right now wherever you get your books. Last one for you, Seth. Your best guess as to what a Bill Belichick University of North Carolina program's going to look like? Is it going to be like there's LT and Richard Seymour and over there and John Bon Jovi over there? Or is it going to look like Alabama? Is it going to be more Saban or more Dion? Like what's it going to look like, Seth?
I think way more Saban. But I think that like one of the things that Belichick will be interested in, and I write about this a little bit in my book, is like the performance inflation in college. You know, the fact that you have quarterbacks who are throwing for such staggering numbers, way more than like John Elway ever put up. And, you know, then obviously are learning the basics of the job once they get to the NFL. I think that like him as a defensive mind and coming up with game plans against Dabo Sweeney and people like this is an underappreciated aspect of it. I think he's going to have a really fun challenge, you know, just trying to throttle these kind of runaway college offenses and almost serve as a counter to what the college game has become. I mean, Belichick is so good at thinking unconventionally, and it's going to be fascinating to watch that transpire on Saturdays rather than Sundays.
Seth, you're the man. Appreciate the time. Love your piece today. Everybody should go check it out on ESPN.com or on the ESPN app. Let's stay in touch. Appreciate it, brother.
All right, man. Great to see you.
You bet. Same here. The one and only Seth Wickersham here on The Rich Eisen Show. Catch The Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku Channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.